of the world. Oh, my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil. Learn Yahweh's ways. Torah Life Ministries.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and we're doing this coming week's Torah Parashah, and we are up to the book of Numbers. We finished the book of Leviticus last week. We're up to the book of Numbers, and the name of the book of Numbers is named because this is where the people start getting numbered, to see actually how many Israelites are actually in the desert, and to plan the strategies for war and so on. Because as you know, when there's a lot of people, the more things grow, the more confusing or chaotic things can become. And that was actually the downfall of many of the enemies of the Israelites, is there was just too much confusion in the camp. There was no order in the camp. And in this week, we see Yahweh telling Moses to take a census of the camp, and also creating an assembly-like atmosphere of having all the different tribes around the tabernacle right in the desert. And he explained how to put up and take down the tabernacle, who's to do what, and their different roles, and even as in terms of marching out and setting up the camp, who's supposed to set up where, and who's supposed to pack up first in a certain way and march out in a certain way, and so on. And it's so important to understand this because organization is so important in having a successful life with Yahweh. Because if our life is not organized and we're just all over the place, whether it be some type of organization to our schedule in terms of our spiritual life, or just organization on our life in general, we have to have organization. And to have organization, what you need is priorities. And people just don't have organization or priorities in their life, and this is creating a tremendous issue. People today go by how they feel, not by how they should be living. And it says in the scriptures, it says there is a path before each person that seems right but ends in death. And then we see in the last scripture in Hosea, it says that the people, each person thought what they felt was best for them. You see, we have to prioritize things not according to how we feel, but we need to prioritize things according to Yahweh's plan and His desire. He has a plan for all of us, and if we stick to His plan, we get His results. And whenever we get away from His plan, we begin to suffer, and we're on our own, and we don't have Him there to help us. If we get back to being obedient to Him, He will be there for us. And this is a problem in today's world, everybody, and we need to understand that the plan He has for us, as it says in Jeremiah 33:11, it says, Yahweh has a plan for all of us, and He wants to offer all of us a future and a hope. Well, it's going to be very difficult to do if we don't have any priorities in our life. And you know, taking a census is not always necessary if we have a little small family of 4 or 5 people, but we definitely need to have priorities, and we need to have jobs, and we need everyone to understand what their role is. And one of the things we teach at our Torah Life Ministries is marriage and relationships and so on. And Yahweh has designed us all with certain jobs and certain roles. Men have certain characteristics that they can handle certain things that women can't. Women have certain characteristics that they can handle things that men can't. And He wants us to come together in our individual differences to find ways to glorify Him. And the enemy wants us to come together on our differences and divide us because of those differences. But when we understand our role that He commanded us to keep and showed us how to do throughout all the Torah, and we're obedient to those roles, and we follow His instruction and guidelines according to where He told us to, we get the result that He desired to have for us. And we look all throughout Numbers and all throughout all of the Torah where Yahweh gave instructions and guidelines, and He told them how to do things. And whenever they listened to Him, they were victorious in all of their wars and their fights and everything else. And when they disobeyed Him, that's when they were taken captive. And they even got Him so mad, as it says in Hosea, you know, they were just hooing around and just not listening to Yahweh, and they were just not putting Yahweh first. And He got so upset, He said, you know, you people are not my people. And He wants us to be His people, and that's why He created us. You know, we are all the chosen ones that want to be obedient to His word and His guidelines and instructions. Actually, as it says in the Aramaic, many are called but few choose. You see, we're all chosen, but how many are going to be to obedient to His word? That's what we have to look at. And the book of Numbers is often read in a way where people skip over it because they're reading Genesis and they're really excited, and then they're reading all the other books, Exodus, and and the plot is getting really interesting. And then they read Leviticus, and there's a whole bunch of rules and regulations, and people want to understand, but people start to get, well, it's about the temple and about sacrifices, so that's where people start to lose interest in the scriptures. And we can't lose interest. We have to keep that same excitement that when we read first in Genesis and then Exodus, we have to keep that excitement going throughout Leviticus. But here's where Numbers comes. And when people see this week, we see Yahweh telling all the different amount of people and the different tribes and who's to go out and what leader is supposed to lead who and so on. Well, a lot of people don't understand the significance of these names and these tribes and the strategy of the way they were set up around the tabernacle. And that's where they tend to lose interest, and they tend to skip over these chapters. And I plead with you, don't do that. Because Yahweh has a reason for everything, and He gives us a name, and we have a name for a reason. And you know, we're not just a number to Him. We are, you know, more important than that. And all throughout the scriptures, we see Yahweh telling Moses, "Tell the people this, tell the people this, tell the people this." You know, for a reason, folks. He's telling us for a reason. And if He didn't want us to know about these names and these numbers of tribes and everything else, He wouldn't have put it in there. But he wanted it in the scriptures for a reason, because they are important. And we're going to be seeing throughout the book of Numbers the importance of listening to Moses and understanding the roles that Yahweh wanted us to play. But when you could just imagine what you take a family of 70, the family of Joseph that were in Egypt. And now you have a family that are camping out in the campground that, you know, there were so many people, almost 2 million people. There were so many of them. It took 12 miles just to fill up that campground. I mean, that is probably the world's biggest campground. I know today they have all these different rock concerts and these outdoor, even Woodstock and all these type of places. But I don't know if anything could compare to those millions of Israelites out there who started in a small amount in Egypt. And just Yahweh shows us how they prospered, and we continue to prosper. And again, it's His chosen one. So what He had was, He had this tabernacle, you know, this tent, and He had the Levites, which were the high priests that were told that this is their job, and they're the ones that go in and set up the tabernacle and not set it up. And if anyone else went in there, they were told to be put to death. Now again, folks, you can't just skip around the scriptures and expect to understand it. Again, I always say to everyone, if you don't read the Torah, you can't understand what Yeshua was teaching, because He taught from the Torah. So when you hear about Yahweh putting to people to death, if somebody just opens the book and says, well, that's not a righteous God, how can He do something like that? How can He just destroy people and kill people? No, it was their disobedience that they brought that upon themselves. And He gave them chance after chance after chance. You know, but if they didn't listen, that's what happened. And He explained to them the instructions and guidelines just like He explained it to us. And if we listen, we're going to get the wonderful blessings that He has in store for all of us. But if we disobey, we're going to suffer unnecessary curses. That I say unnecessary because with obedience, these curses are not going to be a part of our life. We have to take this serious. We have to read the book from the beginning. I know a lot of people that like to jump around. They like to skip over the so-called boring parts. But those boring parts have to become exciting parts for you to really understand that His plan is more than just, you know, the things that we want to pick and choose out of the scriptures. And we have to stop breaking the commandments. We have to stop putting other idols and gods before, and man-made gods before Yahweh. We shouldn't even have them in our lives at all. You know, so we need to read this, and the book of Numbers is no different in importance than any of the other books. We need a strategy, we need a plan. And that's what people are looking for when they come to me, whether it's to learn how to eat better with their diet, or get on an exercise program, or just get organized in life. They need a plan and they need a strategy. And this first book of Numbers, in this week's Torah Parashah, tells us the plan and the strategy that Yahweh was setting up by telling Moses to tell the different tribes to camp out around the tabernacle, to march in this way and that way, for the Levitical priesthood to go in and set up the camp. And this is what their job was supposed to do in the tabernacle. And all of this was building up to the plan that Yahweh had. And that's why they were successful at war. That's why their numbers kept increasing, because they kept being obedient. And when they weren't, the opposite result happened. So folks out there, I just want to tell everybody, develop a strategy, develop a plan, but do it according to the guidelines and the instructions that Yahweh has set forth for us throughout His Torah and throughout all His scriptures, and you will be successful and you will be blessed. There's no worry and fear when you're on Yahweh's plan. When you're on man's plan, when you're living in man's world, doing man's things, what happens? We live in a fear-based society, and that's the issue we run into. We succumb to man's ways, temptations, worries, fears, and then ultimately man's diseases and the curses that we bring upon ourselves for being disobedient to Yahweh's word. So the great encouragement is, the plan is there. It's already given to us. It's like a treasure map. Without having that map, you're not going to find a treasure. We have a treasure map, folks. It's right here. It's the scriptures. That's our treasure map, and all we have to do is open it up and follow what it says, and it will lead us right to the treasure. So everybody, this is Paul Neeson with this week's Torah portion and Torah Life Ministries. Have a great week, have a great Shabbat, and Shalom, Shalom.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways.